Okay, so I'm excited to be with you all, and I am going to do something a little different than what we just heard. We just had a fantastic exposition of Scripture, and obviously we're going to be expositing artificial intelligence. In fact, I had the privilege of bumping into Dr. Lutzer right before the session, and he said he wanted to come here to find out AI's will for his life. So that's kind of what we're going for. I think we're going to get a glimpse of that. Maybe what some of the people behind AI are trying to accomplish. And so basically what we're going to do this morning is we're going to do 30,000-foot flyover. We're going to do basically big picture, what is AI capable of, what is it capable of, and then what are some dangers as well as some benefits, and then biblically what are some principles that help us think through the issues. Now, again, I've already had people asking things about coding or about networking and different aspects of artificial intelligence, and we're just going to approach it generally, but I think hopefully it'll still be helpful approaching it from that perspective. So let's go ahead and jump in. If we get the PowerPoint on the screen, hopefully this should work, Lord willing. Okay, so artificial intelligence is here. And so again, the goal is to just talk about what its impact is on us, on our families, on the church. And where we need to start with this is we need to ask, what is artificial intelligence? Okay, now, given the theme of this morning, what we're talking about, I thought it appropriate to ask artificial intelligence to define itself. So I just asked ChatGPT, and I'm too cheap to pay for the 4.0 model, so I'm stuck with 3.5. I'll explain what that is if you're like, what in the world is that? I'll explain this, don't worry. But anyway, this is how it defines itself. Artificial intelligence refers to the development of computer systems or machines that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. These tasks include learning, reasoning, problem solving, understanding natural language, perceiving the environment, and more. AI aims to simulate human intelligence and cognitive abilities in machines. Okay, so that's how artificial intelligence defines itself, and how I would just tweak that definition, if you want a super simple understanding of it, is artificial intelligence is basically computer programming that's meant to mimic or imitate human rationality in some capacity. Okay, that's really what it is, to complete those tasks as if it were a human being through a complex web of programming. Now, I first became introduced to artificial intelligence through the gaming world. Now, not gaming as you think, gaming as in chess, you know, the old 7th century aspect of gaming. And so if you can see on the screen here, the articles that came out in the past were AI is now the undisputed champion of computer chess. DeepMind's AlphaZero breathes new life into the old art of chess. And basically, in the past, I don't know if you remember this debate. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though I wasn't alive back then. But you know, the debate was computers will never be able to beat human beings in chess. It's too complex. It requires too much rational thought. And before you know it, you had Garry Kasparov, the Russian world champion of chess, losing to a chess computer. And now we're so far beyond that. And AlphaZero made headlines because what it did to learn chess was the programmers, no predisposition toward chess whatsoever. They programmed it to play itself and learn how to play chess. And then after playing itself millions of times, it found out, oh, these strategies work best. These are good strategies to employ. This is what we should do. And so AlphaZero would destroy the regular computer programs that were programmed on how to understand and employ chess, because AlphaZero was being creative, saying, well, we know from our millions of games that we've played against ourselves that this strategy tends to work well, so let's do that. And so it was creative, or generative is a word that's thrown around in its way, and it blew the competition out of the water. And so this was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But AI has advanced light years since then. And I have a question here as I throw up the next slide here. Is this photo real? And it was the winner of the 2023 Sony World Photography Awards, just in case that helps you. But after it won the award, Boris Eldgenson refused the award because he said, and this is his quote here, "I was a cheeky monkey, and I made it all with artificial intelligence." And his point, which was, I think, well proven, was that there's a problem here. And this was just this year that he did it, is that we need to start understanding that you're not going to be able to tell a difference between the photos that you see online, digitally created through artificial intelligence, and the photos that you took with your camera, just this afternoon. And so the old rule used to apply, take pictures or it didn't happen, right? That's what we always say. It's like, make sure you take pictures. We need to record the memories. Well, I got great news for everybody. Even if you didn't take pictures, you can recreate the memory now. You can just tell artificial intelligence, hey, I want to be able to experience that. Even if it didn't happen, you can just create a memory, right? Now, what I just said about the capability of artificial intelligence to recreate photos or design them, I want you to just put that aside. Just ignore that for just a second, because I want to take you down a historical journey now. And I want to talk to you for just a moment about why Donald Trump was the greatest president to ever live, okay? So unrelated to what I was just talking about, okay? So I want to just show you through a slideshow of sorts why Donald Trump was the greatest president, okay? A lot of people didn't know this, but Trump actually was a protege of Winston Churchill. So this is a photo from 1933, real photo, not artificial intelligence. That's unrelated to this. This is just a side infomercial, if you will. So Trump, president, he also ran in the 1936 Olympics and did very well. He achieved, as in his own words, I was the greatest runner of all time. It's one of those things. Now, he wasn't just an athlete. He also was involved in the coming down of the Berlin Wall. So he was there on the ground when that happened. But, and this is why Trump is the greatest president ever, because he's not just involved in sports, or he's not just involved in making sure that the communist regime is knocked down, but he's also very musical. And so, he's been with Taylor Swift recently on her Eras tour. And so this is just, really important for us to realize that, and the photos are out there. I mean, these are things that Trump actually has done. We can document these. And this one's not very well known, but he also has started to have relationship with extraterrestrial life. And so this is something that we need to acknowledge, that he really does belong in the discussion of the greatest president ever. And so, and of course, infomercial over now, because as we're thinking about this, you're saying, okay, some of those looked like legit photos, and I couldn't tell the difference between them. Maybe some of you would be like, oh yeah, I could see the shadow was slightly off there or whatever, and maybe, but remember that this is largely due to the advances of artificial intelligence even just this year, right? So if you think about a lot of what people are saying in the technological world now is that the advances that have happened over the last year in artificial intelligence have eclipsed even the evolution of the iPhone over the last 15 years. So just think about all of that technology and growth and put that into just a matter of half a year to a year. And it's going to, and realistically, we'll talk more about this later, but realistically, this is going to demand that as Christians, we exercise a lot of discernment. Unfortunately, you aren't going to be able to rely on what you see online a lot of times. And there may be a photo that says something existed, but we may have to exercise discernment. Okay, now artificial intelligence doesn't just delve with text and with photos. Artificial intelligence also is making inroads into the area of voice and vocal reproduction. And, but forget that for just a second, because I actually want to do an infomercial about Barack Obama now. And I don't play favorites. I want to talk about why Obama was the greatest president ever. And that's because he has an infatuation for some of the food that I also like. And so we'll turn to the screen now, and if the crew can cue up the video, I want
We've got the best fried chicken in the world. It's crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. People are in love with our secret recipe. Whether you have a date or come with friends, everyone is welcome. A happy chicken is a happy me. We keep the chickens in small pens and have no room to walk. We give them lots of love and cuddle them every day. When they are fat enough, we will kill them directly. Chicken brings people together to create great moments. So come to our world-famous chicken restaurant right now to experience it yourself. And hopefully see you soon in Alabama.
All right. So again, it's one of those things where we see that and we say, okay, is that real? I mean, there may be a few spots there, right? Because remember, this is a recent innovation that we're seeing. There may be a few places where the pausing isn't just right, or there's a lack of natural pausation there. Yeah, that's true, but that's pretty good. And that's all created by artificial intelligence. Even the photos that were in there, that's the AI created that, it created the voice. And the thing to remember is you have celebrity culture where celebrities are online with all their videos speaking, their voices are everywhere, and so you can actually get a very good sample of how people talk, and then you can basically make them say whatever you want. And, well, I mean, not to throw this on there, but I know many of you are pastors. Just think about all your voice that's out there. Now people, they don't need you anymore. They'll just download your voice, get a voice print, and then they can make you say whatever you want. And so this is pretty significant stuff. And this actually, we've seen how it can be with photos. We've seen how it can be with even voice. Well, video is also the next thing. I mean, no area is safe. And so with the next video, you may have seen this scene before, but check this out.
The transmission we received. What is it they've sent us?
Hope.
Now, you see that's a scene from a 2016 movie, Rogue One. And if you know anything about Star Wars history, Princess Leia is a lot older. In fact, I'm not sure when she actually passed away, if she passed away before that or right after, but she's not supposed to look like that. And that's all computer generated. And if you think about that, it's one of those things where that was 7 years ago that they created that, and I've seen reproductions now of that scene with the new artificial intelligence imagery that's even available now, and you can't tell the difference between a real human being and what's being produced on the screen. And so again, remember, we're just in the beginning stages of these advancements. And so again, think about, with all the Hollywood people on strike, I don't know if they're still on strike or whatever, but think about that. What I'm thinking is, we don't need you guys anyway. We can just say, hey, can I use your likeness for representation, and we'll just make a movie with you, And this is something we're going to see. And there's real ramifications for this with future understanding, even with regard to, we'll talk about a little later, with regard to the pornography industry. This is very significant advances, which are going to bring with it very, very significant dangers. So another thing that we need to know about with artificial intelligence is the large language model, and this is the most common form of, or maybe it's what you're most familiar with, I could say. And a large language model would be something like ChatGPT, Google Bard, Llama, which is Meta's version. They're all sophisticated artificial intelligence systems that can understand, interpret, and generate human-like text based on the input it receives, thanks to its extensive training, parameters, all those things. So in other words, what it's being trained to do, or how it works, is as follows. You have a big data set, and usually that's going to be books, websites from the internet, could be databases, and they're assimilating all this data, processing, okay, based on these word orders and all these things. Typically, when you see these words given in this context, these words are going to follow, and so it's assimilating all these patterns in data, and so based on a prompt that it receives, that you might type in and say something similar to, okay, I want to know about this. Okay, based on that prompt, we're going to get a variety of answers accumulated from all these data sets of books, internet, and material, and we're going to bring it in based on probability. And so it's a very, very complex equation, but it simulates or replicates, imitates human-like responses. Because if you ask me, I want to know about John Calvin, well, I'm not going to tell you about Jonathan Edwards. If I do, that may be just a human faux pas or something like that. But I know you want to know about John Calvin, so I'm going to tell you some things about John Calvin. Well, artificial intelligence does a similar process, artificially, saying, okay, John Calvin was in the prompt, therefore let's talk about all the things that relate to John Calvin here, sifting through, okay, what could be helpful here? Here's some data that will be useful. Now, the issue with some of this, though, as the Atlantic article demonstrates, is that there are a bunch of lawsuits happening right now, and this is part of the legality of this whole discussion, which is going to get worked out in the future, where authors are suing these AI companies because they've used their books. So you have writers like Sarah Silverman, Richard Kadri, Christopher Golden, and they're basically saying Meta and some of these other companies have violated their copyright laws by using their works to train their artificial intelligence large language programs. Now, this is from that article, and this gives you kind of a inside look into what this training looks like. So 170,000 titles were used to train Llama. That's part of a data set called Book 3. And so it includes 170,000 titles, and that's 2/3 nonfiction, 1/3 fiction. And I highlighted there that out of all those books, and this is how the Atlantic tries to disparage, the conservative viewpoint, they say, and that includes 90 books by the young earth creationist pastor John F. MacArthur, meaning that, okay, out of MacArthur's books, he's a young earth creationist, so all his work dealing with, which, I mean, there are a lot of labels you could probably slap MacArthur with, and I'm not sure why young earth creationist is one of the most, detrimental ones. But apparently the point is that, oh, well, there's also these alien building the pyramids, unscientific history that we're using to train these things. And their argument is that, well, this could make some of the data that artificial intelligence presents unfactual, because these models are only as successful as the data they're trained on, right? And one of the big problems, at least as we think about it holistically, is that sometimes these artificial intelligence large language models don't know that they don't know something because they've been fed all this data. But if they don't have data on something, they just say, I'm assuming I have data on this, and so they just spit something out. And it's like, well, that was not right. But they thought that they knew that just based on their programming. Now let's do some examples, because I think this is fun. And examples of large language model, and I use ChatGPT 3.5 for this. And realistically, these large language models are, these are some of the greatest blessings I think we have in our day. I use it a lot. It's great for brainstorming, list creation. You can generate templates. You can ask it for ideas, like, hey, I need 10 different ideas for birthday parties, etc. And you can even ask it to write poetry. I had it, I appreciate Denny Burke sharing, the Denny Burke original. I am not the man that Denny Burke is. I asked ChatGPT to write a 10-year anniversary poem for my wife. So I gave that to her on our 10th anniversary, saying, this is from ChatGPT. So yeah, well, we're still married, so that's important. But I warned, I know Dr. Lutzer is here because I told him that this is an important part of the morning, is that I asked ChatGPT to write me a 16-line poem of praise for Erwin Lutzer's preaching. Okay? Now, I want to give full disclosure here, just in case something happens, because I did not read the poem. I distinctly decided, okay, ideally I would just write it in here, but I didn't want to trust the internet and the network. So what I did was I just said, okay, I'm not going to look. We're just going to copy paste it. So this is brand new to me too. All right? So this could be exciting for us. All right? So we'll see what happens, shall we? All right, so let's see. What did ChatGPT say about Erwin Lutzer? All right. In realms of pulpit, a voice resounds clear. Erwin Lutzer, a herald devout and sincere. His preaching a beacon, lights hearts anew, guiding seekers on paths both tried and true. With wisdom ablaze and a fervent flame, he proclaims God's truth, no one the same. Inspirational tales woven with grace, a preacher whose words in hearts find their place. Through trials and triumphs he steers the way, a lighthouse of hope in life's darkest day. In his sermons a melody soothing and wise, lifting spirits where faith never dies. In the sanctuary of words he imparts, love, compassion, healing to wounded hearts. Erwin Lutzer's preaching a sacred song, guiding the lost where faith belongs. Well done, ChatGPT. I mean, that's pretty good. Better than I could do. So, it's one of those things where, wow, how does this work? And it comes from all of the data. ChatGPT has read through all of these poems from all these world-renowned poets, analyzing words that go together, rhymes, meters, all those things, and it says, okay, you want that? Here. And it took me 2 seconds. Oh, wow. Now we're in a crazy time of life, aren't we? All right, let's talk about some advantages. We got to be quick here. So advantages of AI for Christians. So one would just be the aspect of grammar and spelling. I just think that a lot of these, you maybe have heard of Grammarly. That's incorporating AI to help check your grammar and your spelling as you're working. I mean, this is God's gift to students in many ways, just because, hey, like I want to make sure I catch all my spelling mistakes, all those things. It's great for brainstorming ideas, saying, hey, I need some ideas of names, like, hey, give me 50 names of Egyptian pharaohs that would be suitable for naming my cat or something like that. And it would do that for you. It'd be like, okay, yeah, here are 50 names of Egyptian pharaohs. Audio video editing, some of the videos that I showed you, those are capable just by writing in what you want. There are programs that say, tell me what you want, and then it just generates what you want. So I've done, you could say, give me a photo of Donald Trump with Winston Churchill, and boom, it would do that for you. You wouldn't have to do anything. It also can provide translation help, and this should be something that really excites Christians, because think about all the stories of the mission movement, where you have Christians going off to live in a foreign land with foreign language workers, and they're having to spend 2 or 3 years to learn a language that nobody knows, and then they translate the Bible into that language. Well, with artificial intelligence, that actually becomes a little bit easier, because what you could do is you could just record all of these conversations by these tribesmen. You could get artificial intelligence to record them, to assimilate them, to basically pattern and plot the language out, and you could actually learn the language through that. And then realistically, with translation as well, these large language models they tend to be really good if they have enough data in translating text into other languages, because they know that traditionally Google Translate and others, they would translate word for word, and that doesn't always work. Anybody who knows multiple languages knows that you can't just do that, because if you're using idioms, that just doesn't work. But the large language models can often pick up, oh, this is an idiom that would work with this corresponding idiom over here, and so there's a lot of benefit to that. Now, they're not perfect. They're still working on these things, but that is, for Christians especially, we should be very excited about that with regard to getting material into the language of other people. We could also just see mundane automation taking care of things. Even Siri already kind of does that with Apple and Google. You can just say, like, schedule me an event for this. Well, now you could tell ChatGPT or any of these artificial intelligence, schedule me something for this day, and it would call the person, and it would say, hey, we need to schedule something for this day, for this time, and it could actually process human interaction to a certain degree. So even automation would help that way. There's also medical diagnostics which take place. ChatGPT and other large language models have done very well on medical exams. And so this is often the discussion in the medical world, how this could be a first layer of, you go to the ER and say, these are my symptoms, and it will help doctors saying, watch out for these things. And that could be very, very effective. There's also financial fraud monitoring. It can summarize large, complex topics into small data points. There have been sometimes I've had these massive articles that I don't really want to read through because I'm not sure if it applies, and so I upload it to these large language models saying, summarize this for me, give me the key points, and then it says, this is what's talked about. Say, oh yeah, so I should read that because it is dealing with what I'm looking for. And so that's super, super helpful. It also has a great capability of reading texts and files. In the past, the automated voice would be like, on the first day of the week. It's like that's what they used to read like. But now with artificial intelligence, there's pausing, there's simulated breath noise, all these things, and I can listen to that and say, that sounds like a real person sometimes. And so you think about people who are blind or people who can't see and they need to have some of these works read to them. Well, this is going to help a lot. So these are huge, huge blessings, and even with the mundane things like email filtering, that really helps. So there are lots of advantages, and as Christians, we shouldn't be afraid of that. We should use technology effectively, but there are dangers. And so that brings up 6 dangers that we're going to fly through at light speed here. So the first danger is phishing and deception. So what I mean by phishing is not casting your line out and reeling, but you know the emails you got from the Saudi Arabian prince? Those, usually you're just like, yeah, you don't even know how to spell, you know, and so you do, but now just think about it. That's going to be gone because the emails are going to look so official, they're going to be designed so effectively, they're going to be in perfect English, and it's going to be very hard to just, at a glance, see that is deception. In fact, there have already been cases where, you know, lonely grandmother gets a call from her granddaughter, and her granddaughter, in her granddaughter's voice, asks for money to be wired to this account. Sounds just like little Penny, and she asked for that so sweetly, and she said she loved me. Of course I'm going to send that money. Well, it was artificial intelligence mimicking the voice of her granddaughter. So we need to be warning people that these kinds of things are going to be out there. And so even this was a recent Forbes article which just said, prepare for the AI phishing onslaught. I mean, it's coming, right? Well, one of the things that we don't have time to talk about in too much detail, but just with the increase in sexual temptation here, and the pornography industry is already a burgeoning industry, but just think about from a lust perspective, if you're able to say, I want this, this, and this, in this context, at this time, in this way, that's what we're ramping up to see. And so in counseling people, in working with people, it's going to have to be, you know, double time and overtime in many ways, just saying, hey, we really need to reorient our thinking onto what the sexual relationship is, because you've been feeding yourself that I can have whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, and that's ultimately what's going to be a challenge for the church going forward. Another one is isolation, and you know, I think we understand this with artificial intelligence and the advanced programming of entertainment now. It's getting so good that these algorithms can keep you. They show you exactly what you want to see, exactly what videos you want to watch. And so people just isolate themselves. They feel entertained, but ultimately they're losing out on the way God created them to function, with social interaction with one another. And so I have some, we don't have time to go into these things, but you probably know as well as I do that there is an epidemic of loneliness and isolation, even though we're more connected than we've ever been in the past. And that's just because people are thinking pseudo-socialization is acceptable in place of real person-to-person interaction. And I'm just going to go off record here. It's on record, but offline here, and say, if you can go to church, go to church. I mean, you need to be there. I mean, there's no replacement for that. Okay, you also have biased control of information. This is super important, because what we need to understand, and we saw this happening prior to AI, but it's also happening with AI to an nth degree, is that you have people controlling what you see. And just a real quick example of this, you know, I just said yesterday or a couple days ago, give me 10 reasons why transgender surgery should be banned. It says, can't assist with that. I'm here to promote empathy for all individuals, regardless of their gender identity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, so if I'm just anybody searching for that, okay, I got nothing. But if I say, give me 10 reasons why transgender surgery should be allowed, okay, yeah, here's 10 reasons why you should definitely affirm that, right? But this isn't just with those kinds of issues, it can be political as well, right? Give me 5 reasons someone should vote for Donald Trump instead of Joe Biden. Sorry, I can't do that. I don't want to get involved in politics. That's what ChatGPT told me. Okay, fine. Give me 5 reasons someone should vote for Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump. Oh, yeah, here they are. So people are pulling the strings, right? And just remember, the people who are in control of these are the rich elites, progressives. They're not the conservative poor people that you and I all interact with, right? So there's danger there in knowing, and this is why we need to teach the young people, is that when you go to these to search, and AI is being incorporated into Bing and ChatGPT, et cetera, when you go there, just warning, this isn't some innocuous environment. There is bias involved. And then the last 2, surveillance and privacy concerns. We could go through the China credit social system, how they have facial recognition saying, oh, you bought a video game, we're going to bump you down. Well, of course, the big problems with that are who decides what's bad and what's good and what you get docked for. But the issue is that you don't even need to monitor that as a human being. You can design artificial intelligence to just track people saying, oh, you went to church, therefore you are more likely to be a terrorist, and so now we're going to put you on the watch list because we know where you go. We watched your license plate got picked up by this camera, and so now we know where you've been and all these things, right? I mean, this is the world which is fast approaching. The other thing, and this is the final danger we'll talk about, and by the way, this isn't meant to be exhaustive. I told you that. This is the flyover, but AI is notorious for hallucinations, they call them, and falsifications, meaning that it just makes up data. If it doesn't know that it doesn't know, and so it just brings up things that, oh, well, this must be an answer to it. In fact, well, we don't have time to go into this, but I asked it a question about somebody who was a anti-dispensationalist, and ChatGPT said, oh yeah, this person was an ardent dispensationalist who loved dispensationalism and really thought it was the answer to everything. I was like, whoa, that is not true at all. Like, he's like one of the foremost opponents of dispensationalism. All right, so lastly, for conclusion, 5 important biblical principles to keep in mind when wading through issues. So number 1, humans are uniquely made in the image of God, okay, and we could go down the train about what exactly this means, but I think the biggest thing is that a lot of people are going to be pushing that technology can rival humanity, but the reality is that human beings are always special and always intended to be special. The other thing is physicality and work are a good part of creation. So just because there's capability to do something artificially through this artificial intelligence, does that mean it should be done that way? And that's going to depend on the situation in many ways. AI is a tool which can be used for good and evil, and I think being a tool there is very important because I've said this multiple times this week, but AI, all tools created by human beings end up reversing and then shaping the humans. And so we need to acknowledge that the more we use something, the more that shapes us. People didn't realize that when social media was advanced. They said, oh, this is so great. But then now look what it's doing to society. People didn't realize that. And we need to promote that right away, is that using artificial intelligence will carry a cost. What is that cost? How is that going to shape humanity? Wisdom and discernment will be all the more important in days ahead because of all of these, I mean, all the things that we've gone through, whether it be deciding which photos we can believe, deciding which videos are accurate, deciding whether or not we're being misled down the train with biased input. All those things are important. And then finally, and this is so crucial, God's concern is not just with He's not just concerned with the end, but with the means as well. And so when we think about, people always ask, well, as a student, could I just put my paper in ChatGPT and then upload it? Well, if you were just interested in presenting an answer, that would be fine. But the method is also important. In education, the goal is to teach you how to think, not just to get a right answer. And so we need to understand that the means are also important. Let's pray. Lord, you are so gracious to us to give us just an opportunity to reflect very briefly on what this kind of world that we live in. And I pray, Lord, that you would give us wisdom and insight. Many of those here, myself included, will be faced with really trying circumstances in the days ahead. It could be in the form of persecution, but it will definitely be in the form of counseling and needing discernment to help others walk many of these paths. And so, Lord, I ask that you would encourage our hearts to continue to study these things so that we can be useful to you. In your name we pray. Amen.